The WNBA is being shaken to its absolute core. Rumors of a massive corruption scandal, with referees at the center, are everywhere. The integrity of the game itself is being questioned. But what if the truth is even more shocking than the rumors? What if the referees aren't the real villains, but just the symptom of a much deeper disease? Because the referees aren't the ones exposing this. The players are. And they're not pointing the finger at their refs, they're pointing at the very top. This isn't a story about a few bad calls or a rogue official trying to fix a game. Why do T? This is the story of a league-wide revolt, an explosive public civil war that has exposed a system so broken, so underfunded, and so mismanaged that it's threatening to tear the entire organization apart right at the moment of its greatest triumph. The scandal is real, but the culprit isn't who you think. It all started with what the public could see. When Caitlin Clark entered the league, she brought tens of millions of new fans with her. And what they witnessed wasn't just basketball. It was a chaotic, hyper-physical battlefield that the officials seemed utterly incapable of controlling. Welcome to the League moments quickly became a national storyline, and the flashpoint was Chennedy Carter's infamous hip check. It was a play that happened entirely away from the ball, a blatant cheap shot that sent Clark to the floor. But the real story wasn't just the foul, it was the league's response. On the court, it was ruled just a common foul. It was only after a full day of relentless, massive public backlash that the WNBA League office was forced to retroactively upgrade the foul to a flagrant one. What this delay sent a clear message: the league's first instinct was to do nothing. It was the first sign that the leadership was completely disconnected from the reality of its on-court product. Carter herself seemed to confirm this wasn't just an accident. When asked about the incident days later, she was completely defiant, telling the media, "I don't have any regrets." She was clear that this was just how the game is played, saying, "At the end of the day, it's all love outside of basketball. When we're in those four lines, it's smoke. On of the we pulmuldo parte, after it's all love." But for the millions of new fans, all they saw was the smoke. This chaos wasn't a media fabrication, it was a statistical reality. A viral stat that spread like wildfire revealed that during the 2024 season, 17% of all flagrant fouls in the entire WNBA had been committed against Caitlin Clark. Out of 30 total flagrant fouls in the league, 5 were against her. Even more shocking, 80% of those fouls, 4 out of 5, were committed by a single team, the Chicago Sky. This wasn't just physicality, it was a statistical anomaly that proved the targeting narrative was based in fact. But the breakdown in officiating wasn't a one-way street. The chaos became so rampant that it even consumed Clark herself. In a later game against the Sky, Clark committed her own flagrant one foul, shoving Angel Reese to the ground on a layup attempt. The play was reviewed, and the referee's official explanation was that Clark's extension of the left hand to Reese's back was not a legitimate basketball play and deemed unnecessary contact. This was the ultimate proof that the entire standard of play had deteriorated. When referees completely lose control of the game, the players are forced to start enforcing the rules themselves. The league was descending into anarchy, and the front office was silent. The chaos on the court was just the beginning. The problem escalated when the coaches, the on-the-ground leaders of the league, officially declared war on the league office. The full-blown crisis erupted during the WNBA semifinals between the Minnesota Lynx and the Phoenix Mercury. The flashpoint was a single devastating play. Lynx superstar Napheesa Collier, the league's MVP runner-up, was injured on a controversial no-call that left her writhing on the floor. The no-call ended her season, and with it her team's championship hopes. Her coach, the legendary Cheryl Reeve, exploded. In the post-game press conference, Reeve didn't just criticize the refs, she delivered a damning indictment of the entire system. She called the officiating crew "fing awful," and then aimed her fire directly at the league leadership, saying, "The officiating crew that we had tonight, for the leadership to deem those 3 people semi-final playoff worthy, it's fang malpractice." The league's response was swift and brutal, but it wasn't aimed at the problem, it was aimed at the whistleblower. The WNBA suspended Cheryl Reeve for the decisive Game 5. With their coach suspended and their star player injured, the Lynx were eliminated. But the league office wasn't done. In a move that shocked the entire WNBA, the league then fined 2 other prominent head coaches, Indiana's Stephanie White and Las Vegas's Becky Hammon, for the simple act of publicly supporting Cheryl Reeve's comments. This was a monumental strategic blunder by the league. Instead of isolating Reeve as a sore loser, the fines unified the coaches against the front office. It proved the coaches' point that the leadership was more concerned with suppressing dissent than fixing the problem. Indiana's Stephanie White, in a baffled tone, told reporters, "Look, I already got fined for supporting Cheryl, which I think is crazy. She was right." The league was now actively punishing its coaches for speaking the truth, and in doing so, it confirmed that the rot went all the way to the top. So why was the officiating malpractice? This is where the real massive corruption scandal lies. It's not a corruption of bribes or game fixing, it's the corruption of a league that has systemically and intentionally chosen to underfund its own integrity. The entire officiating system is a patchwork of systemic shortcomings. First, NBA referees are not full-time employees. They are part-time, per-game contractors. In fact, many reports indicate that top-level referees are paid less for a WNBA game than they are for officiating a high-level college game. This structure immediately creates a conflict. Second, the WNBA is not treated as a destination for referees. It's treated as a stepping stone. The WNBA's officiating pipeline is run through the NBA's G League. This means for many refs, the WNBA is just a proving ground to get to their real goal, a full-time salaried job in the NBA. Their loyalty is not to the WNBA, but to their next job. The system is compromised by design. Third, the league lacks the most basic modern infrastructure that is standard in every other major sports league. The WNBA has no centralized, off-site replay center. This means referees are forced to review plays themselves on a courtside monitor, slowing the game and potentially introducing bias. The league also forgoes the NBA's last 2-minute reports, a transparency standard that holds officials accountable for missed calls in the final moments of a game. The WNBA, by contrast, operates in secrecy. The most damning part? The league denies any of this is a problem. Despite a Washington Post report calling the officiating chronically lousy, second-rate, and despite the clear evidence of a league-wide revolt, the WNBA's officiating leadership remains steadfast in their belief that the referees are doing their jobs well. This wasn't just incompetence, it was an active gaslighting of the players, coaches, and the millions of fans watching the product collapse in real time. With the on-court product in chaos and the coaches in open revolt, the players delivered the final decisive blow. This was the moment the crisis became an existential threat to the league. It came from Napheesa Collier. Collier isn't just any player. She was the 2025 runner-up for League MVP. More importantly, she is the vice president of the WNBA Players Association. When her team, the Lynx, was eliminated, she sat down for her end-of-season interview. But instead of answering questions, she pulled out a prepared 4-minute statement. This was not an emotional outburst. This was a calculated political indictment. She began by diagnosing the core problem. The real threat to our league isn't money, it isn't ratings, or even missed calls or physical play. It's the lack of accountability from the league office. She stated that the inconsistent officiating has undermined the integrity with which it operates. She accused the leadership of being tone-deaf and dismissive, and that they ignore the issues that everyone inside the game is begging to be fixed. That is negligence. And then, she delivered the line that would define the entire scandal, a quote that blew the WNBA's leadership crisis wide open. "We have the best players in the world. We have the best fans in the world. But right now, we have the worst leadership in the world." A league MVP runner-up, speaking on behalf of the Players' Union, had just publicly declared a vote of no confidence in the entire WNBA front office. If Collier's statement was the indictment, the next part was the evidence. She didn't just bring opinions, she brought receipts. She revealed the details of a private conversation she had with WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert, and the alleged quotes were so shocking, so completely tone-deaf, that they explained everything. Collier claimed she had asked Engelbert how the league planned to fix the fact that generational stars like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, who were clearly driving massive revenue for the league, were making so little on their rookie contracts. According to Collier, this was Engelbert's response. Caitlin should be grateful she makes $16 million off the court because without the platform the WNBA gives her, she wouldn't make anything. This single arrogant comment revealed a fundamental misunderstanding of her own league's value. The media and fans immediately fact-checked this, pointing out that Clark already had her massive 8-figure deals with Nike, Gatorade, and State Farm before she was ever drafted. The WNBA wasn't giving Clark a platform. Clark was bringing her platform to the WNBA. The commissioner, it seemed, was the only person who didn't understand this. But it was the second alleged quote that caused a visceral, league-wide backlash. Collier claimed that in the same conversation, Engelbert said, "Players should be on their knees thanking their lucky stars for the media rights deal that I got them." The phrase "on their knees" was not just arrogant, it was dehumanizing. It framed the players, the league's product, as beggars rather than partners. This was the smoking gun. It perfectly encapsulated the tone-deaf, dismissive approach that Collier and the other players had been fighting for years. This wasn't a leader, it was a ruler. The public had now heard the evidence. The league and the media waited to hear the commissioner's defense. How would Cathy Engelbert respond to these catastrophic, career-ending allegations? Her response fueled the fire. Instead of a clear, direct, and forceful denial, Engelbert released a weak, evasive statement. She said she was disheartened by how Napheesa characterized our conversations and that there were a lot of inaccuracies in the reporting. Media and fans immediately and correctly identified this as a non-denial. The analysis was brutal. She completely dodged the question and never denied the actual quotes. Her timid, tepid statement was seen as a confession. By using the classic corporate speak of how it was characterized, she all but confirmed that the core of Collier's claims, the on-your-knees mentality, was true. When pressed by reporters, her only direct denial was about the Caitlin Clark comment, and even that was a pivot, not a refutation. She said, "Obviously, I did not make those comments," before immediately redirecting to praise Clark as transformational. It was too little, too late, and no one believed it. The non-denial was more damning than a confession, and it set the stage for the final phase of the league's public collapse. The WNBA exploded. Engelbert's failed response unified the entire basketball world against her. First, the players. The WNBA, the official players' union, released a powerful statement in full support of Collier. It was a mic drop moment, a declaration that this was now the union's official stance. They wrote, "When Fee speaks, people listen. We are confident that her words today speak to the feelings and experiences of many. The players know their value even if the league does not." That last line, "The players know their value even if the league does not," became the rallying cry for the entire movement. Stars from every team, including heated rivals, spoke as one. League MVP A'ja Wilson said she was disgusted by Engelbert's alleged comments. Angel Reese, Clark's biggest rival, posted simply 10-10, no notes. The players had chosen their side, and it wasn't with the commissioner. Then the media delivered the final blow. The story had broken containment from the sports world and was now a mainstream news event. On ESPN's First Take, Stephen A. Smith, one of the most powerful voices in media, delivered a blistering viral segment. He eviscerated Engelbert's weak-ass statement. He said she looks guilty as hell. And then he, a key media partner of the league, delivered the final verdict. "I believe she should hand in her resignation." The commissioner had lost the players. She had lost the union. And now she had lost the media. This is where the true stakes of this entire corruption scandal are revealed. This public war wasn't just about feelings or respect. It was about money and power. And it was all happening against the backdrop of the single most important event in the league's history, the expiration of the Collective Bargaining Agreement, or CBA. This is the real endgame. The entire public scandal, the officiating, the fines, the worst leadership statement, the on-your-knees leak. It was all a brilliant, high-stakes negotiating tactic. The players, led by Union VP Napheesa Collier, have been preparing for this fight. Under the current deal, players receive only a fraction of league revenue, estimated to be as low as 9%. They are demanding a new, modern contract, one similar to the NBA's, that gives them a real revenue split tied directly to the league's explosive growth. And this is why another commissioner was forced to step in, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver. Many fans don't know that the NBA still owns 42% of the WNBA. Adam Silver is in effect Cathy Engelbert's real boss. Silver was forced to go public, admitting the WNBA is going through growing pains and that the league has relationship issues that are not just economic. His intervention was the ultimate confirmation that Engelbert had completely failed, forcing the NBA to step in to protect its 42% stake. Collier's public statement was a masterful power play. She has successfully and publicly framed the WNBA's leadership as incompetent, disrespectful, and untrustworthy right before they are set to negotiate a new multi-billion-dollar contract. The WNBA is at a breaking point. The league is exploding in popularity, but its internal structure is collapsing. The massive corruption scandal from the rumors isn't what we thought. The real corruption wasn't referees fixing games. The real scandal was a league leadership exposed as negligent, running on a chronically lousy and second-rate infrastructure, and led by a commissioner who allegedly told her players, the very women building her league, to get on their knees. This is a league at war with itself. The coaches are against the front office. The players are against the commissioner. And the union has drawn a line in the sand with one perfect phrase: the players know their value even if the league does not. The final question isn't whether the referees will be fixed. They will, because the NBA's money is now on the line. The real question is, how can the players possibly negotiate the future of their sport with a commissioner who has been so completely and so publicly exposed? The simple answer to that question is, they don't. How can you negotiate in good faith with a leader who has been so publicly and so completely humiliated? You can't. Cathy Engelbert's authority, her power, her leverage, it's all gone. She is a lame duck commissioner, a ghost at the head of the table. Her non-denial wasn't just a clumsy public relations mistake. It was an accidental public letter of resignation. She may still hold the title, but make no mistake, she is no longer in charge. The players know it, the media knows it, and most importantly, the NBA owners know it. In fact, her only remaining purpose may be to serve as a sacrificial lamb. She is the face of the old guard, the perfect person for the owners to lose to in the negotiations. She can be the one to sign the historic capitulation the players are demanding, and then be quietly shown the door, allowing the league and its owners to save face and blame the entire crisis on her tone-deaf leadership. Because the real negotiations aren't happening with Cathy Engelbert, they are happening with Adam Silver. His public comments about growing pains and relationship issues were not just damage control, they were an assumption of command. The NBA's 42% stake in the WNBA is the elephant in the room. This isn't just a WNBA problem, it's an NBA investment that is suddenly and publicly at risk of collapsing from within. Silver and the NBA's Board of Governors, the real power brokers, see what everyone else sees: a league with skyrocketing transformational ratings being run by a front office that is, by its own players' admission, the worst in the world. They see a commissioner who has lost the trust, respect, and confidence of her entire labor force. Adam Silver's intervention was a clear signal to the players, the media partners, and the advertisers. The adults are stepping in to protect the asset. The WNBA's brief experiment in full autonomy is over. And what will that asset cost to protect? This is what the players, led by Collier, were really talking about all along. The "on your knees" comment was the match, but the collective bargaining agreement is the powder keg. The players are done with the old system. They are demanding a revolution. They want real, percentage-based revenue sharing, not the single-digit scraps they've been given for decades. They want a deal that mirrors the NBA's, where the players get a direct 50-50 split of the basketball-related income that they generate. They are demanding that charter flights, a basic standard of safety, professionalism, and competitive fairness in every other major sports league, be made mandatory, with no exceptions. They are demanding an end to the archaic rookie salary scale that insults generational talents like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, forcing them to rely on State Farm endorsements while the league itself profits millions off their names for a tiny 5-figure salary. This brings it all back to the Clark effect. Cathy Engelbert's alleged arrogant comment about Caitlin Clark being grateful for the platform was her fatal miscalculation. She saw Clark as someone who uses the platform, when in reality Caitlin Clark is the platform. The league's entire infrastructure, the part-time refs, the second-rate oversight, the patchwork systems, the dismissive leadership, it was all built for a niche sport. But Caitlin Clark and the massive wave of talent and rivalry she brought with her turned the WNBA into a mainstream colossus overnight. The league was not ready. The targeting of Clark by players exposed the officiating. The league's attempt to silence the coaches who complained about it exposed the front office. This entire scandal is simply the sound of a 1990s system buckling and breaking under the intense pressure of 2025 popularity. This is why Napheesa Collier's statement was so brilliant. It wasn't an emotional plea. It was a cold, calculated, and perfectly timed declaration of war. She knew the media was watching. She knew the fans were outraged. She knew the CBA opt-out was looming. She took the league's newfound popularity and weaponized it, using the spotlight to expose the rot in the foundation. She has now put the league owners in an impossible, unwinnable position. They can either dig in, side with their toxic, exposed commissioner, and face a catastrophic public labor war that could kill the golden goose, or they can get rid of Engelbert, give the players the historic contract they have so clearly earned, and secure the league's new multi-billion-dollar future. After the "on your knees" quote went public, there is no choice left. The players will not bend. The owners will have to be the ones who break. The revolution is already here.